pleasure that I introduce Dr. Anastasia Mihailidou, who is the Communication Liaison of the Executive Committee of the HBPRCA. And she's also a social media superstar. And so today she'll be presenting on building social media engagement. So thank you, Anastasia.
Thank you, Quinn. Now you've made me very nervous by saying that. First of all, I'd like to thank Dean and all of your committee, ECR committee, superstars that you are, for inviting me to give this presentation. I also would like to take a moment today because, as we all know, it's an important day in Australia for National Sorry Day in terms of our Aboriginal Australians, or I call them native Australians because we're all visitors here. And so I tend to say sorry a lot. So I think hopefully we can change things, and I see positive changes. So I'm very grateful that we're talking about engagement because it is about communication, and thankful. So I'll just get started. What I've done is I haven't overburdened you with presentations, but firstly, I am very thankful to everybody for this opportunity to chat with you. When Dean first invited me, I don't know if you can see that because of it's being happy. It's a happy penguin from Happy, and I was ecstatic. But then fear set in as to what will I say? Will it go across well? And so I have this because it's a great reminder that you can back out and forget everything, or you can face everything and rise. And it's a good reminder for all of us when we are faced with that. And I've had some very difficult situations like most of us had through my career, but thankfully I've persisted, and I feel that it's made me stronger, but at the same time, it's also given me great opportunities. So I have to disclose, put up a disclosure sign whenever we're putting anything. As Quinn said, I'm grateful to all of you members of the High Blood Pressure for electing me onto the Executive Committee. And I'm grateful to Professor Marcus Slake for allocating me to the Communications portfolio. I am also on the International Society of Hypertension Communications Committee. I'm a member of the Hypertension SOME editorial team. I also am a member of the International Society of Hypertension, which I didn't put on there, Women in Hypertension Research Committee. I'm on the advisory board of the Stride BP, and I'm grateful to Pierre Sabaret for inviting me to the Scientific Committee of the National College of French Cardiologists. And recently, I've become a member of the Allied Health branch of the European Society of Cardiology Communications Committee. You might say, well, God, she's bragging already. No, the reason I've put those up, except for the first two, all the others arose because of my engagement on social media. And the reason I say that is because everybody used to be very critical of me engaging on social media. They didn't think of it, particularly our Australian peers, that it was worth it. But in fact, it is worth it. And as many, and I'm hoping some of my colleagues from our cardio Twitter group join, will show you it is about engaging. And if you do want to progress your career, then it's a very fast track for engaging. It's not about the promotion, as some people use, and there are quite a few of them. It's about how you use it, and that comes down to communication. So I don't know if you can see that. One of the apologies, I can't, but I know what. Can you see it or not? Nod if you can. Yep. It's some of the basics about. I don't know if I can put it. Yeah, some of the basics about Twitter, which come into the engagement part. It's you always have to think before you say something. And the important thing is that sometimes we write or react to things when we shouldn't, and it comes that back. So the problem with social media is it's a one-way communication. You don't see the expression of the other person's face or understand what that person is going through. So it doesn't matter what your intention is of how you've written it, it's what the reader is feeling. And that's really vital to remember. We have to remember that even if we don't feel comfortable or feel happy about something, that the person receiving them may not be happy and may misinterpret it. So you don't have to be fearful of it, as we said on the right-hand side here, on this side here, or left-hand side, I should say, but you do have to be wary. And that's why most of my tweets, for want of a better word, because it's a different vocabulary, are thoughtful, because I put a lot of effort into making sure that it doesn't offend, it doesn't malign. And that's something I forgot to mention at the initial thing, is you have to keep in line with your institutional policies. Whether you like it or not, it's your personal account, and people always put, and I've done it as well, that these don't represent, institution endorsement or opinion. It doesn't matter. There are strict policies, and we have to be careful. It's like our cricketers, it's like our movie stars and everything. We are all accountable, we are all responsible, and so you can still have fun, but as long as it's not attacking anyone, or going into some explicit details, or political banter, as some people do. So be wary, because unfortunately you can't retract it. It's the internet, and once it's out there, it can't come back. And unfortunately, with Twitter and with a lot of things, it's live. So your message is going around the world, and it's quite frightening. And so some may say, well, I'm not very vocal like you. I'm not an extrovert like you. Believe it or not, I wasn't an extrovert, and I still am not an extrovert. I am a lot more boisterous for some reason. I don't know why Twitter does that to me, but I am very conscious that there are things that I can't say and I shouldn't say, whether I think it or not. It's different what you say in a personal, confidential conversation. There is no confidential on Twitter. You can direct message someone, but even that is a problem. So just be aware. So, daunting is the word I use, and everybody says, oh, look, I can't be bothered, or the ones who aren't on social media, which is about probably 80% of the academia worldwide, from my reading, and I stand to be corrected. But it's overwhelming, and I'm sure you've all felt the same way. How am I going to make sense of it, and what can I do? Especially when you first log on in the morning and you may not have had enough sleep, or you're having a bad day. The last thing you need is to have all these different communications. And so the thing is, it can be quite daunting, and you feel, and I feel sometimes, that you have to arm yourself. And sometimes it has to be with armor, because it can be overwhelming in terms of the conversation and notifications. But other times it's because of the excess selfies. And we do a lot of selfies, I have to say. I had never taken a selfie in my life until I joined Cardio Twitter, and it's excessive. It's exactly like here. And it can be overwhelming, and it's not everybody's cup of tea, but we all do it. The reason is because we're social animals, and we're all a part of the same family, and we like to show off. And the thing is, however, when we do it excessively, it can be exhausting for some people, and people switch off. And so therefore, what you have to do is remember, you have to find a balance between this level and this level, where you can keep some people happy that they've interacted with you, but at the same time, not overexert yourself. And the reason I put these up is because I am a very visual person. I find pictures speak so many more words than tables or data will show you. And the thing is that it is overwhelming for all of us. But as you've noticed here in the title, I've put a hashtag. With moderation, please, people. I say that because I'm sure all of you have read posts where people have written something, and nearly every second word has got a hashtag in it. I think the millennials, and most of you are in the young group, do it in daily life. Unfortunately, I'm too old for that, but the reason that it's useful in social media, particularly Twitter, is it allows you to sift through the myriads of information that are coming through. And if you've noticed with my tweets, I do, and I'm not going to show it here because I'd like to have more of an interaction with all of us talking rather than me talking, is that if you hashtag specific words that I've used commonly, then it means you can search those terms instead of going through and looking at, you know, people's recipes or people's babies or dogs like I do, or cats, or some sort of a political statement that someone is annoyed with. You can then search by the hashtags, and that will sift out all the relevant. It will still have, unfortunately, some misinformation, and that's where you need to sift through it and maybe look at it. The reverse is true when you're typing a message. If you use it, then it means more people are likely to see it. And that comes with the part of the engagement. The engagement is not about just increasing your profile and opportunities for collaboration in your career. It's about relationship. It's about communication. For me, it's, and I'm grateful that you've asked for my opinion, it's about learning, and it's about getting the messages across. And it's a very powerful medium because it's not just professionals as we're used to in conferences and other you know, select journal clubs. It's patients, and it's also families, and they're the ones who count. Impact now, as we all know, is not about our Nature papers. It's about how we're changing health, or how we're helping people to change their health for self-management. So I'm just trying to change my screen. It seems to be stuck. This is not good. Sorry, I just need to see if it's just refresh. Okay. Oops, what happened? Sorry. Okay, let me share it again. Can you see it now? Can you see it now? Yeah. So it's not about the number of tweets or retweets or likes. And the reason I've put this up here is not to boast about, you know, how many follows I have or how many tweets I have. Is to show you exactly that these analytics from social media don't mean anything. People use them. They're really great in terms of conferences, you know, to get an idea of how active and how popular the conference is and sessions. And it's good fun to say we have influencers, you know, people who followed a lot. But if you notice here, this is just a summary from Twitter of my activity. And you'll notice I'm way down in terms of tweeting and what have you, and people retweeting my tweets. But I've increased in followers. Work it out. I have no idea. And if someone can explain it, that's great. But even the specialists can't explain it. That it's based on impressions, which is basically what people will see it. The impression is not people liking it, it's people viewing it. And so therefore you get a false sense of power, and you get a false sense of that you are popular. It's not about popularity. Social media engagement for what you want to achieve for your career, it's about having a conversation and having fun as well. And with that, I have to highlight an important part. Once you do get proper engagement, you'll be tagged in, like I have been here, from people that you are not following. You have no idea who they are, but for some reason have put your name there. Now, people advise you that you should block them or report it. Sometimes it's just because they want to get the message across, and they think because they've seen some activity from you, or you happen to be having a conversation at that time, that they can do that. I do just usually ignore it. It gets difficult, however, when people who you do follow and have conversations like here block you for no apparent reason. So the reason I've put this on is not to highlight this person, but more importantly, to highlight that because I didn't tag this person, they blocked me. It happens to the best of us. Don't take it personally. That's where the armor comes in. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's about finding your niche, finding your team, finding the people who support you, and ignoring the rest. And then you have other people here who tag you. And the reason I put this up is because this person initially started to direct message me, and I had to block them because there were not just myself, but other female academics with quite innuendos. I won't say offensive, but innuendos, and that became uncomfortable. And so you need to be aware that you have to, it's not about the stardom, it's also about being wary. And so sometimes it does feel like when you make a statement that you are the brave one and that you are getting out there and you're the sole voice, but it's about, as I said, finding your team. And there are people who will support, they'll like you, they'll answer it. We can't follow every single conversation of each one. It's impossible. And it depends on when people get on and off, you know, with time zones and with family commitments and work commitments. We can't all be on. But your friends, Twitter, it doesn't replace your real life, which is your family and friends, but it can enhance your friendships. And so your friends are the ones that will play with you, that will have similar values as you. And the important thing is it's a team effort. It's always a team effort, and team is, there's no I in team. With social, if you're going to be an effective engager on social media, you have to think about a team response. Together, everybody achieves. And these are some of the people who allowed me to be where I am today because they supported me. You know, people like David Fishman, Michael Savage. We all know the queen of social media, Professor Martha Gulati. Professor Mamas wasn't there, but we have the other king of social media, who was the person who started me on social media. And so this is where the fun comes, which it builds, and I'm not going to go through individual ones, but it builds the relationships. And as you can see, these people, there are lots of good times. There are all of you there as well. We're having fun together, but it's about the connections. And most of these people, I had started conversations and friendships on social media or Twitter before I met them. The beauty about Twitter is that with your conversations, it can encourage friendships. The thing is, however, the friendships come from the content that you give. It's not about the trivia. Yes, the trivia reveals your personality, but it's your expertise. And the reason that I have I'm grateful, not boasting, but grateful for the friendships and the collaboration is because, as you all know, I'm passionate about hypertension. I'm passionate about blood pressure measurement. And so I communicate that. I post like we all do, but I comment on it. And that's where you make your friendships and you get your invitations. And I won't show all of these, but we have our presidents there. But I will highlight this particular photo here because that's the fun part of social media, where we played a practical joke that no one went to the presentation and I was the only one there. And so all of these people have become great friends. They've become great collaborators. Some of them I haven't collaborated, but it's such an enriched life communicating with them. Finally, just very briefly, because we started late, is Dean mentioned something about covering a bit of conference. How do we get the most out of conferences? And the important thing is that, as I said, using the hashtag facility, you can enhance your conference opportunity. Now, the important thing is that's how you can start your engagement. If you're scared about starting to engage or making comment that someone might be offended, you can start with conference proceedings or following conferences. And this is what we've done here. These are all the co-authors here. Some are consumer representatives like my brother and Deb McCall, who's an avid fantastic atrial fibrillation representative, Professor Hiramath, who is a renal physician, and we've got an interventional cardiologist. This is the beauty of Twitter. It doesn't restrict you to your own specialty, and that's where it enriches you. And so hopefully this is still online, and I'll go to the second last slide. We've made a visual abstract, which hopefully will come out once the journal, it's in press at the moment, it's been accepted, but the importance is that the conference proceedings are a way for you to start communicating. That's where you're in your comfort zone. It doesn't have to be clinical. There's strong presence and great leaders, you know, with Professor Lindsay on there and other specialists as well, and that communicate. You get great exchange, as you probably all have, but it's transformed the conference to, you know, posters and individual to a global network. Obviously, the face-to-face interaction, which we're all missing now, is important. But as we said here, it's by encouraging the communication initially, then you can succeed. So my last two slides are, please, let's help each other. We don't compete. I know it's very hard. I know sometimes it feels awful about hearing all these successes everybody else is getting, and you're thinking, why her or why him? I've produced all these papers and I'm not getting the recognition, or I didn't get my like or retweeted. It isn't about that. It's about helping each other. And that doesn't have to be physical. It can be supportive emotionally, which is really important. Mental health is such a big factor for all of us, and much more importantly now. And I leave you with the last comments, because I didn't know these quotes until I got onto social media. So that's why I say it's a great learning tool for life, not just for our specialty. But Robin Williams, as we all know, has major mental depression, or depression, I should say. And he wrote some valid quotes, which resonate with me because I've gone through these as well myself. The worst thing you can do is be in a room where people don't support you. So social isolation or physical isolation is one thing, but when you have mental or you know, professional isolation, that's much harder. And I'll leave you there. And the reason I've put my mother up there, who's 90 years old this year, is because she used to say to me the same thing that I saw a quote from Robin Williams. He made us laugh. I loved his humour. And my mum always says, doesn't matter how you feel, always put on a smiley face. Just remember, when you're communicating, just because someone is jovial or is joking doesn't necessarily mean that they're happy. It's always important to make sure that we get to ask, are you okay? And on that note, I'll finish. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Anastasia. That was a very insightful talk.
Good. More people.
Yes, everyone's very excited to see your talk. So if anyone has any questions, you could type in the chat function, because we started a few minutes later today, so we can go a few minutes after 1 o'clock. But if anyone has any meetings, please feel free to leave early if you need to. So we have a question here from Vivian. Thank you for your presentation, Anastasia. With meeting people on Twitter, I was wondering how you go about approaching them when meeting them in real life. Sometimes I feel a bit awkward, especially as a PhD student, approaching leading researchers in the field.
Oh, that's easy. Does involve Twitter, but Twitter helps us to find these people much faster, for sure. What I would suggest is you go up to them and you use the best line, which I used to use, was, I'm really, it's an honor to meet you because I've followed your work and I'd like to meet you in person. And that it's not a stroking their ego. It means that you've read it, but then you follow it with a specific comment about the work. And that's where it starts. You have to know what their area of specialty is. If it's just for networking, then you just have to say hello and I'm from this place and I'm in this area. But if you are in the same field and they're one of the leaders, the best thing you could do is hone in on a specific item from their discussion, and that way they will feel very happy that you know their work. But more importantly, it's an opportunity for collaboration, because it shows from a receiver point of view, that the initiative that you know the area and that you are making them, you are approaching them in terms of, discussion.
Anastasia. So we have a question from Rachel. Thanks for your presentation, Anastasia. I am wondering what your thoughts are about making sure we, especially as ECRs, have enough credibility behind us to be taken seriously as science communicators.
Yeah. Good question, Rachel, and thank you. It's the self-doubt rather than the...
Sorry, Anastasia, I think you're cutting out there. Yeah, it's a bit fuzzy. It's quite fuzzy.
What's happening with the connection? Should I get out and go back in?
Yeah, maybe try logging out, coming back in. See.
Bear with me.
Can you just unmute yourself, Anastasia? Can you unmute yourself, Anastasia?
I realised I was muted.
Yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, all good.
Somehow that happened. I don't know why. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you properly now.
It's not from the receiver point of view. It's more our own individual self-confidence, and we all go through that. It's a matter about talking about the area that you are passionate about and you have expertise, rather than venturing. You can make a comment when you venture, but you really do need to have read extensively before you make the comment. Otherwise, you do get challenged. And it's unfortunate that it's not as often now as it used to be, but it does still happen. Someone will challenge you, and that's where you lose your confidence. But my advice is start off first with an area where you're strong in and you all have strengths. And if you want to venture into another one, then collaborate. Draw on the strengths of the team and not fend to the other person for the answers, but discuss it with them first. Hopefully that's answered your question.
Thanks, Anastasia. So there's a question from Dr. Sorry, I mispronounced Dr.
He's from America. Is he there?
Welcome.
There, he's waving. Introduce yourself, Vimal. Unmute yourself. No, he's muted. Okay.
It's okay. So he just wants to ask if you make... Oh, hello.
Hi, how are you? Yeah,
it's good to see you.
Dark here. Yeah, it's getting dark here. It's 8 o'clock at night. But
Great. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. I have a very simple question, so you can read that. It's just a simple thing that you mentioned on about the hashtag. So maybe you can help me with that too. That'd be great.
Yeah, the hashtags is a great idea because we are getting overwhelmed. So for instance, hashtag hypertension or hashtag radial will sift out the information. When we write something, if you do that, then it means all you have to do is go into the search bar of Twitter and you just write the hashtag and it will list all of the discussion over the different timelines. The thing is with Twitter, because it's getting overwhelmed with communication, it'll only store one day's communication. So be aware, if you do want to save something, either archive it or save it to your hard drive, because it'll get lost and they won't restore it. Hopefully that's answered the question.
I think I want to ask more specifically, if you make up a term such as wear a mask, does this then become searchable in Twitter?
Yeah, if you make up a comment, sometimes people will like it and it will go what's called viral, excuse the pun. It depends on how popular it is, but you may see something. You can make up a term, but then you have to make sure you keep repeating it so people catch on.
Yeah, great. So we have a question from Martin. Thank you, Anastasia. I'm wondering how you manage your time to enable regular tweets through the day, and does that distract from your other activities, including listening to a presentation if we are tweeting about it?
The thing is, and it's an important, thanks Martin, it's an important comment to make. When you do tweet about presentations, you actually listen to it. So what I do is, rather than, I live tweet something like the introduction and I can make a comment. But then you'll find, and it depends on everybody's level of interest or understanding in a topic, you'll find when they're talking about the methods or introduction, because you're in the area, you understand it, you can then live tweet a bit about it. But I don't do the major content from a meeting at that time. I'll do it in the evening or at a break when I have it, so that I don't lose sight, because the idea is to listen to the information rather than tweet about it. It does get overwhelming. We all do it. You know, we want to live tweet sometimes because there'll be an interesting side and we miss something, but that's the beauty of the hashtag. And that's another important point. Even if you do miss it, because a lot of it is live on Twitter from other different people, you catch it. You also can get access via the conference organisers for the sessions. And that's a really great way, because if you can't go to a meeting, like some of us can't, then you can see it. In terms of the day, you have to have time management. Sometimes it's not easy, especially with different time zones, but you have to block out, and you obviously shouldn't be doing it during work time. We're all doing it, we're all checking it because we can see each other's comments and we like it, as long as it's not excess. So you can't really. So what I do is I do it after hours, or you can do it via TweetDeck, as Liam kindly showed me, and that sets the posts that you want to do. Or if you can then go, the hashtag allows you to go into the individual. And the journals now, you'll notice, are using Twitter more and more for their release of the articles rather than by email or by traditional ways. So.
Thank you. So I guess we'll just have one last question, one from Jordan. Thank you for your inspirational talk, Anastasia. I thought Twitter would help with educating the general community, but I seem to find other academics have become followed by academics rather than people from all walks of life. Do you actively provide your Twitter account to your patients? Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you, Jordan. I don't ever give my account to my patients. They've never asked for it. But I have given my email because sometimes they do need to follow up. I have followers, as I showed you, Deb and McCall, who I recommend everybody follows, and others who are patients or who are consumer advocates. Everybody would have seen Beverly, and Vimal knows Beverly really well. It is a non-academic. That's the beauty of Twitter. It allows you to connect with people and they become your voice. So Jordan, you can engage with people on Twitter as long as it's within the reasons of your institution are comfortable with that. I don't give out it's available on Twitter, but I've never been asked for it. And basically, I give them the same information. They're too tired by the time they finished with me that I do on Twitter. Every session that I spend with a person, it comes back to Martin's comment about time. A session of putting a blood pressure monitor on is not just about putting the blood pressure monitor and engaging them in how to use it. It's about advising them about life and whether they're drinking, whether they're smoking, whether they're exercising. So by that time, they don't want any more information from me.
Okay, I think we'll finish things here, but thank you so much, Anastasia, for taking the time out of your day to do that presentation. And thank you everyone for attending. We do have these weekly sessions every week, and this will also be recorded and be available on YouTube to watch later as well. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Anastasia.
Bye.